I was looking for a new game to play, so I finally decided to play the beloved Square RPG Chrono Trigger. However, due to me starting a new job and recent health issues with my stomach, my playthrough got severely sidetracked. Because of my new responsibilities, doctor's appointments, stomach pains, and a lack of energy because of all of it. But I realized that I couldn't get Chrono Trigger out of my head, or more like Chrono Trigger refused to leave. As I sat clutching my stomach thinking that it was going to jump out of my body, I was pondering whether Frog's curse could be lifted, what is Magus's true goal, and can I get Chrono back? The thoughts just wouldn't stop. Then as I lay in my bed, I wondered if this is how everyone felt about Chrono Trigger after playing the game. Heck, I just finished the game last week and I'm still obsessed with it, looking at alternate endings and news of a remake while listening to a Temple of Time remix on repeat. This led me down a line of questioning, relating my thoughts and how people won't let it die nearly 30 years later. So after all of that, I decided to try and figure out why one small JRPG from 1995 transcended time. But before we get started, if you enjoy my videos, please like, subscribe, and share my content. Also, if you wish to support my work directly, becoming a YouTube member is the best way to do so. Sticking to the concept of time itself, starting with the pacing of the game that doesn't waste any time, establishing our first three characters and giving them a reason to travel through time. The best thing about this intro is the intentional choice to not get caught up in the rules of time travel like so many stories do, leading players like myself to not question the mechanics behind what is happening in this concise story, allowing us to fall in love with the characters and world building from the very beginning. And this was an intentional choice by Masato Kato, who was trusted to edit and complete the story outline due to his previous work on the Ninja Gaiden series, Nadia: The Secret of the Blue Water video game adaptation, and Princess Maker 2. He was specifically quoted as saying that he wanted to avoid a long string of errands, do this, take this, defeat these monsters, or plant this flag, etc., which is very different from most games in the genre back then and even now, with overdrawn and very expository openings that have to explain a lot of things before the story gets moving. And even though I'm someone who doesn't mind these type of openings, I can understand why this would be a big hurdle that would stop a lot of people from even trying these games. This is a big criticism that a lot of people who love and dislike RPGs have expressed for decades. And by moving at a brisk pace from the very start, it allows people who wouldn't try these type of games to give it a chance, allowing Chrono Trigger to enter the wider gaming landscape. But sticking to the topic of time and the actual length of the game helps the game stay relevant, with the game being on the shorter side of the genre, with me finishing the main story, all of the characters' relevant side quests, and a few extra things under 30 hours. This is a very good thing in my opinion, because while the game was fun, I don't think it would have been enjoyable if it was much longer. I feel like this is something that can be applied to many games, with JRPGs being guilty of having bloated stories, but Chrono Trigger does a good job of keeping these things concise, allowing me to finish the journey satisfied with what happened, where the characters end up, and completely indifferent to a sequel that people debate about until this day. However, I spent enough time talking about the length of this game, so let's talk about how the development guaranteed that this game was going to be something special. The original idea behind Chrono Trigger spawned from the minds of the creator of Final Fantasy, Hironobu Sakaguchi, the creator of Dragon Quest, Yuji Horii, and the creator of Dragon Ball, Akira Toriyama, after they visited the United States in 1992 to research computer graphics, and they all decided to create something that no one had ever done before. Following the early conceptual period, the development of the game started in 1993, and just like all unlikely heroes, Chrono Trigger becoming its own thing just happened by circumstance, with the game originally being Mana Island as a part of the Mana series, and an uncredited member of the team pitching the idea of a time travel adventure. Then, due to Nintendo canceling the project for the Super Famicom disk drive, the team shifted development to the Super Famicom, settled on making the game 16-bit, and gave it the title we all know and love, Chrono Trigger. After this, the original 60-person team was joined by the team that had just completed completed and released Final Fantasy VI, which included many veterans that worked on other Final Fantasy games. On the outside, Chrono Trigger looks like an average 90s turn-based JRPG, but when we dig deeper, we can see how the combat manages to stay interesting and simple all at the same time, starting with the ATB system that was directly pulled from the Final Fantasy series with no real changes, and allowed characters whose speed was high enough to deal multiple attacks before enemies could get off one. But where Chrono Trigger's combat stands out is the tech system, an entirely separate point system that differs from EXP. Tech points are how playable characters gain new abilities, but the difference between tech points and experience is that everyone gains XP regardless of whether they're in the active party or not. But to gain tech points, characters have to be fighting, pushing players like myself who would just use one party setup for the entire game to try other characters and experiment is genius. Tech points give you techs that are your character's special abilities like high damaging physical attacks, AoE spells, and healing abilities. But Chrono Trigger is relentless with the options it gives players with dual techs and triple techs, where two or more characters will team up to use an extremely powerful ability, but the downside of this is that these combo attacks will use the ATB of everyone who is a part of the attack, leaving the party open to attack, and sometimes an emergency heal can be the difference between winning and losing. And these combo attacks, in addition to the various strategies to defeat bosses, lead to more memorable moments and an enjoyable experience. While tech and design have improved over time with many amazing 16-bit games over the years, Chrono Trigger manages to hold its own, managing to flesh out 5 distinct environments that all have a purpose in the greater scheme of the story. The present 1000 AD introduced me to the initial world of Chrono Trigger, giving me a false sense of security with the festive and jovial mood. After this, the game takes the characters to the Middle Ages 600 AD, which is just a small change to the world but does enough to give it a different vibe compared to the present. But just as I thought I understood how the game was going to time travel, it blows the doors off with the apocalyptic future 2000 AD, giving an air of mystery that left me wondering what happened with the small clues it left behind. Then the story leads to the exact opposite end, with our characters heading to 65 million BC to the prehistoric period, where we see the overarching threat of the game for the first time. Lastly, my favorite time period in the game is Antiquity 12,000 BC that introduces the ancient advanced kingdom of Zeal, explains the current state of events, and reveals that all of time is at stake if they don't stop Queen Zeal from using Lavos. As you can see, each time period serves a purpose and feels distinct based on the color grading, explorable areas, and NPCs, leading to the game feeling a lot bigger than it is. And I would assume that Chrono Trigger was used as a reference for how Final Fantasy XIII-2 handled time travel. But let's stay on topic and talk about the story of Chrono Trigger. Chrono Trigger is a very simple story of unlikely heroes throughout time saving the world. I don't want to get too deep into the details of the narrative because of how short it is, but I do want to highlight great character building moments throughout the game. Starting with Robo getting attacked by his fellow robots, which is one of the most sad and heartwarming scenes in the game. Robo realizes that he's defective because of his sentience and compassion, begging the other characters to not hurt his friends even as they're tearing him apart. However, Robo processes this traumatic experience in the most positive way possible, deciding to join the party to make the future better. And that unrelenting compassion expresses itself in a side quest where Robot stays in the Middle Ages for 400 years to replant a forest expecting nothing in return. This compassion reaches its climax when an optional cutscene takes place where Robo offers to give Luca's mom his legs if she can't save her mother from her accident. Robo explains that he's doing this because Luca is his friend, completing his character arc. Now let's move over to Frog's backstory, where we see how he grew up with Cyrus, the hero of the Middle Ages, and that his real name was Glenn. But even with sword skills that surpassed Cyrus, Glenn was a coward, so he didn't join the knighthood and improve his skills. This eventually resulted in Cyrus getting killed and Glenn getting turned into a frog, wallowing in that guilt until he he met the rest of the party, where they instilled a new sense of confidence in him to pick up his sword once again. What I love about Frog's character arc is that it's just beginning. By the time we finish the game, where he breaks his curse and goes on to presumably have many adventures protecting the kingdom for years to come. Even Frog's design leans into the theme of trying again, with frogs being a symbol of rebirth or cleansing the soul in some cultures. With all of the symbolism in this game, that can't be an accident. And the last scene I want to talk about is the campfire scene. In a game where there are so many bombastic, energy-filled moments, I found this more mellowed out group talk before the end game stretch to be a great contrast with the rest of the game, with it being one of the few conversations where every party member has something to say, with them all together having a conversation that has been long coming. And while they don't come out of it with a clear answer to the questions they have, I think that is by design, because this game was never about finding answers but rather asking questions and enjoying the journey along the way. And that journey touched so many people that it made Chrono Trigger transcend time. So with that being said, if you enjoy my videos, please like, subscribe, and share my content. Also, if you wish to support my work directly, becoming a YouTube member is the best way to do so. And if you want to see another video essay, that's on screen right now.